What would you do if you discovered the people you trusted most were hiding a secret that could destroy everything they'd built? I asked myself that question the day I took over my parents' finances, expecting to help them through a rough patch. Instead, I uncovered a web of lies, betrayal, and financial abuse that shook me to my core. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I unraveled the truth about my family and found the strength to confront it. It started innocently enough. My parents, Ellen and David, were in their late 60s, retired, and living in the same modest suburban house where I'd grown up. They'd always been frugal, or so I thought, saving diligently for their golden years. But last spring, my mom called me in a panic. "Sarah, we're behind on the mortgage," she admitted, her voice trembling. "The bank's threatening to foreclose." I was stunned. How could this happen? They'd always been so careful, so responsible. I offered to step in, to take a look at their accounts and help sort things out. It was the least I could do for the people who'd raised me, who'd sacrificed so much. But as I dug into their finances, I realized I wasn't just helping them, I was stepping into a nightmare. At first, it was just a mess of numbers. Bank statements, credit card bills, and loan documents were scattered across their dining room table like a puzzle with missing pieces. My dad, always the quieter of the two, hovered nervously as I sorted through the chaos. "It's just a few bad decisions," he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. My mom, on the other hand, was defensive, insisting they'd manage just fine if I left it alone. But I couldn't. The numbers didn't add up. Their savings account, which I'd assumed held decades of careful planning, was nearly drained. Credit card balances were skyrocketing, and there were loans I'd never heard of, loans in my parents' names, but with no clear purpose. I pressed them for answers, but they deflected, their excuses vague and unconvincing. Something was wrong, and I wasn't going to let it go. Days turned into weeks as I pieced together the truth. I started by calling the bank, posing as my mom with her permission to get details on the mortgage. The representative was blunt. Payments had been missed for over a year, and the house was weeks away from foreclosure. I asked about the loans next, expecting to hear about medical bills or home repairs. Instead, the records showed tens of thousands of dollars borrowed over the past 5 years, much of it transferred to an account I didn't recognize. My heart sank. Who was behind this? I confronted my parents again, but their answers were evasive, their faces pale. "We'll figure it out," my mom snapped, but her hand shook as she spoke. My dad just stared at the floor. Then came the twist I never saw coming. While combing through their email for more clues, I found a message from my older brother, Mark. He'd moved across the country years ago, and we rarely spoke. The email was short, almost cryptic, thanking my parents for helping out with the business again. Business? Mark had always been the dreamer in the family, chasing one failed venture after another. I'd assumed he'd settled down, but now I wondered. Digging deeper, I found more emails, dozens of them detailing transfers of thousands of dollars to Mark's account, labeled as investments or loans. My stomach churned. Had my parents been funneling money to him, even as their own lives fell apart? I called Mark that night, my voice tight with anger. "What's going on with Mom and Dad's money?" I demanded. He hesitated, then launched into a rehearsed pitch about his latest startup, some vague tech venture that was about to take off. When I pressed him about the loans, he grew defensive. "They wanted to help me," he said. "They believe in me." But the truth was uglier. Mark had been manipulating them, playing on their love and trust to fund his schemes. He convinced them to take out loans, max out credit cards, and drain their savings, all under the guise of investing in his future. Worse, he made them promise to keep it a secret even from me. My parents, too ashamed to admit they'd been taken advantage of, had let their lives unravel to protect him. The realization hit me like a punch. My brother, The one who taught me how to ride a bike and cheered at my high school graduation was financially abusing our parents. I felt betrayed, not just by him, but by the silence of my family. Why hadn't they told me? Why had I let it go this far? I confronted my parents again, this time with the emails in hand. My mom broke down, sobbing, admitting they'd wanted to believe in Mark's dreams. "He's our son," she whispered. We couldn't say no. My dad, usually stoic, looked broken. "We thought we were helping him build something," he said. "We didn't want you to think less of him." I was furious, but beneath the anger was a deep, aching sadness. My parents had been preyed upon by their own child, their love twisted into a weapon against them. I wanted to scream at Mark, to cut him out of our lives, but I knew it wasn't that simple. They still loved him, and so did I, in some complicated way. Instead of giving in to rage, I decided to act. I worked with a financial advisor to halt the foreclosure, negotiating a payment plan with the bank. I froze the accounts Mark had access to, cutting off his ability to siphon more money. And I sat my parents down, promising to help them rebuild, but only if they were honest with me from now on. The hardest part was confronting Mark. I flew to his city, unannounced, and met him at a coffee shop. He looked older, worn down, but still had that charming smile he'd always used to get his way. I laid out everything: the loans, the lies, the damage he'd done. He tried to deflect, claiming he'd pay it all back, but I wasn't buying it. "You took advantage of them," I said, my voice steady. "You used their love to hurt them." For the first time, he had no comeback. His eyes dropped, and he nodded, a flicker of shame crossing his face. I didn't know if he'd change, but I made it clear: no more money, no more secrets. Rebuilding took time. I helped my parents downsize to a smaller home, paid off some debts, and set up a strict budget. They were embarrassed, but grateful, and slowly, they started to trust themselves again. I also worked to repair our family, urging my parents to talk openly about what happened. Mark reached out a few months later, apologizing in a way that felt genuine, though I kept my guard up. Healing would take years, and trust would take longer. Looking back, I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about love, loyalty, and the lengths we go to protect those we care about even when they hurt us. Taking over my parents' finances exposed a painful truth, but also taught me the power of facing hard realities head on. My family isn't perfect, and we may never fully recover from the betrayal, but we're learning to move forward together. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is holding those we care about accountable, even when it breaks our hearts.